but today, I'm the greatest of all time. Thank you.
Never stop, I'll get it if I want it. Gotta make to myself a promise. I won't quit, keep going till I got it. I won't give up till I'm on top.
Yo, no, I ain't the type to give up. If I do something, man, I do it till I get what I want. I turn a business out of nothing into something I love. I got a poker face, but honestly, I'm not one to bluff. I flip a switch, never miss, man, I always stay up. Don't let them see you, always have a plan to stay tough. This life ahead of you ain't easy, it was built to be rough. But that's what makes a personality, is tragedy, bruh. So keep your head on your shoulders. Now we ain't out here moving rocks, we out here moving boulders. Now we ain't getting posterized, we out here making posters. And we ain't got nothing to hide, we move forward like soldiers. You better wake up for the pay stub, or you'll pay up. Don't make love to the game, bruh, it's a game up. Change up, rearrange stuff to your greatness. Same us for the way up, play the game, bruh.
Never stop, I'll get it if I want it. Gotta make to myself a promise. I won't quit, keep going till I got it. I won't give up till I'm on top, yeah.
You know I'm always honest, there ain't no way I'll never stop it.
I won't quit, keep going till I got it. I won't give up till I'm on top,
I'm always flirting with pain, she like to hurt me and maim. I'm always working to change, but she's still lurking the same. I keep on building a dynasty while the haters be trying me, but they hate from inside.
What is going on, everyone? Welcome to another edition of Unscripted Live here on the Elite Sports and Entertainment Network. Join me to talk about some college football game previews, as always, as we do each and every single week. Jay McLaughlin, what's up, Jay?
I'm doing well, man. I'm ready to talk some Ivy League football and some Montana versus Montana State FCS. Let's go, Montana! Grizzlies!
Jay, that's the main event. We got to get there first. And as always, hey, Dustin Reese, what's up, man?
Oh, not much. Just hanging out, enjoying life while it's still warm outside.
Good. Hey, can't beat that. It's about 60 or so here. It's feeling nice. Feeling nice for some fall weather.
That's because Dustin knows he lives in the frozen tundra.
Yeah,
up there.
It's 64 here today.
So. Oh, wow. Not bad. Not bad at all. Not bad. Well, guys, let's just go ahead and jump right into it. We got an SEC rivalry here. Good matchup. Tennessee hoping to pull off a major upset and beat the undefeated, number one ranked now, Georgia Bulldogs. Jay, how do you see this one shaking out on Saturday?
Yeah, I definitely see Georgia taking this one, unfortunately. Georgia had a very soft schedule up until the point where they got, Ole Miss and Mizzou and stuff like that. So this really is the last team, I think, that has the opportunity of having Georgia take a loss, because after this they got Georgia Tech, and then after that they got the SEC showdown, most likely against Alabama. So I think you only had really two shots at taking Georgia out of it, and that's either Tennessee getting the upset or Alabama getting the upset in the SEC showdown. So if you look at this game, though, you got Beck versus Milton. They both got about the same amount of picks and touchdowns. Beck has thrown for more yardage. Bowers is back, so that's a huge plus for them. I think he was back last week as well. So I think I give the run game to Tennessee. I think Wright, his 7.2 to Edwards 5.6, just a little bit better. Although Edwards does have more touchdowns, and obviously touchdowns equal to points. So 10-3, that's a huge deal there. So I think they all just kind of cancel out each other. I think Georgia's played a lot of good teams, man. Kentucky, Mizzou, Ole Miss, 2012 and 9 ranked respectively, compared to Florida, Alabama, Mizzou. And, of course, all of those were losses for Tennessee. But the one thing we know, Logan, is this. Tennessee does tend to play Georgia pretty tough.
Yeah.
And they have beaten, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe they have beaten Georgia. That guy, correct me on that, but I believe they've beaten Georgia. Am I right on that?
I'm sure.
Or if I'm thinking of Alabama, I might be thinking Alabama. Either way, they do play them tough. It is in Tennessee, so the game is not in Athens, Georgia. So, can Tennessee play the spoiler? It's at Tennessee. I don't think so, but I hope so. But I am going to give it to Georgia. I think it's going to be – I'm going to go 28-21 favor of Georgia. But I see Tennessee get the spoiler in this.
Jay, I know you hope so that way someone can fall out maybe and Texas can hop in.
Hey, we got a 30% chance, so there is still a chance.
He said there's still a percentage. There's still a chance. Dustin, do you see this one going the same way Jay does, or will Tennessee pull off the shocking upset?
45-17 Georgia. I think Georgia getting Brock Bowers last week was huge for them, especially knowing that SEC championship game is coming up against an Alabama team that is very quietly starting to look like the Alabama that everyone is so used to seeing. And everyone was kind of second-guessing Georgia. Yes, they've won 26, 27 games in a row. Yes, they've gone undefeated again. But a lot of people made the case that Georgia really hasn't been tested, and they wanted to see what would happen when they got tested. Well, they've been tested against Missouri, and granted, Missouri gave them a good game. They still came out on top, and they were getting tested against Ole Miss early and then blew the doors off of them later in the game. So Georgia is starting to get tested now, and it seems like the better the opponent they're getting right now, the more they're starting to up their game, and that's exactly what you want to do at this point of the season, knowing who you're going to be facing.
Well said, Dustin. I'm also going to go with Georgia getting win this one. You guys have said it beautifully, just how they had a light schedule early in the year. Now in the back half, they faced some tougher opponents. Hasn't been super. They have been, running through teams left and right. Like you mentioned, that game against Missouri was a tight one, but a win is a win nonetheless. And then the last week against Ole Miss, we thought, it's going to be closer. It was not close at all. Georgia just dominated them from every which way pretty much. Like you mentioned, Brock Bowers coming back earlier than expected was huge. He looked great in his, kind of limited role, but he was more so used as kind of that decoy when he wasn't getting the ball. And even when he does, he still just does great work out there. Carson Beck threw for over 300 yards as well. He did great. He did good. And the running game was really solid for Georgia also, which they haven't really had up until this point. So it's a dominant win last week for Georgia. I expect that to continue this week against Tennessee. Give me Georgia 35 and give me Tennessee, I'll go 17. Final score in that one. All right, up next, another good matchup here, Oregon State and Washington. Dustin, kick things off. Who's taking this one?
Well, this is going to be the game of the week in Corvallis this weekend. For all the crap that Washington's defense has been getting against them for not being a good defense, they sure as hell look like a good defense against Utah in the second half last week because they did not give up a single point in the second half against Utah last week.
Well said.
That was kind of, I think, the moment that Washington needed. Like, offensively, Washington's one of the most gifted offensive teams in the country with Roma Dunze, obviously Michael Penix at quarterback and that running back, but their defense has kind of been the thing that's really been holding them back the last month or so. And first half against Utah, they were terrible defensively. Even worse than what they were against USC, even worse than what they were against Oregon. And all of a sudden the second half starts. Whatever adjustments they made that second half to not give up a single point and to force 3 second half turnovers, that's going to be the key to their success the rest of the way. As for Oregon State, this is quietly one of the best teams in the country that nobody even talks about. Obviously because of but Washington and Oregon. If it wasn't for Washington or Oregon, which they're not going to be in the Pac-12 next year anyways because they're going to the Big Ten, Oregon State would be the best team in the Pac-12, and they still have a shot to make the Pac-12 championship game. Former Clemson quarterback DJ Uiagalelei is the quarterback at Oregon State now, and he's looking like that top-rated quarterback that he was when Clemson originally recruited him before he started to have those injury issues, and he's the big reason why Oregon State's in the position they're in right now. I'm going to go with Oregon State this weekend. And it's not because I think that Penix is going to play bad. It's not because Washington's defense is going to play bad because it's the Pac-12. A lot of the defenses aren't playing that well in the Pac-12 as it is. But Oregon State is just playing better football top to bottom than Washington right now, and going into Corvallis is never an easy thing, especially when you have a ranked opponent versus a ranked opponent. And if Oregon State finds a way to win this game, you're going to have a 3-way tie for the Pac-12 championship game where it's going to come down to tiebreakers at that point. But I like Oregon State in this one, 38-34.
All right. Jay, do you also have an upset brewing, or you got Washington coming out on top?
It's going to be Washington coming out on top, but let's just understand this. Washington's defense still sucks, okay? You played against Bryson. You didn't play against Cam Rising. Don't act like this was anything more than what it was, a subpar Utah team going up against Washington. Let's just keep it in perspective. Penix Jr., the guy's just amazing, man. I mean, what can you say? Outside of between him and Jaden Daniels and Bo Nix, I mean, those guys, this is really probably going to be one of the better Heisman showdowns because there really is a lot of damn good quarterbacks vying for that number one spot. And you can make a case for the Heisman for any one of those three guys. But Penix Jr., man, that touchdown he made against Utah where he put it right over, so it was just phenomenal again, like he always does. 28-7 versus Ugalele at 20-4. Even though Penix has done a few more picks, this Oregon State, which is a good team, by the way, they're ranked 12. They are a good team, and they do have a better running back than Johnson. So if I had to give them one status point better than Washington, it would be in their run game. It's 6.6 to 5.8, 7 to 11. But I do think they have a better run game. But ultimately, the passing game of Penix Jr. is just going to be too much for Oregon State. And Oregon has played against what? Washington's played against Oregon and USC. Those in Arizona. Those were their not so much Arizona, but I look more at the Oregon and USC. Those are the only really two ranked teams that they played. Oregon State's had a tough battle, man. They played against WSU at ranked 21, UCLA at 18, Utah when they were ranked at 10. They got Washington and Oregon still left on their slate. I mean, they played against a lot of tough teams, and to be 8-2 going against that many ranked teams, that says something. That says a lot, actually. I don't think it's going to be enough to take out Washington, but they are a damn good team. And I think they give Washington a hell of a lot more than what Utah gave them. Okay? But I do think ultimately Washington gets it. I'm going to go 35-24 in favor of Washington.
All right, Jay, well said. Yeah, this is definitely going to be one you got to tune into this weekend. This is going to be a really good game. Huge implications if Oregon State pulls out the win, obviously, for how that will affect Washington in trying to get into the college football playoff. For Washington, just, you got to keep doing what you've been doing. Like we mentioned, the defense, for the most part, Dustin mentioned last week, in the second half was rock solid, but has been shaky at times, to say the least. But as long as that offense can keep going at, max power like we've seen, and they can put up points and yards that they've been doing for, many weeks now, it should be another solid game for them. Oregon State, like y'all mentioned, is a team that doesn't get a lot of love. Not a lot of people are talking about Oregon State and how well they've played this season. But I think for me, obviously, you look at these two teams, and the main thing that stands out is, of course, Michael Penix, and we've talked about him before, and just how well he's done. And he's faced challenges before. He's stepped up to the plate, and he has knocked him out of the park. So he has done great, and I think that will continue this upcoming weekend against Oregon State. So for me, I'm going to have to go. This is tough because I don't know if I want to put this on high scoring or if I want it's kind of in a moderate. But I will go with the Washington Huskies taking home the W in this one and remaining undefeated on the season. I'll go Washington. I'll go 38, and I will go Oregon State putting up a good fight. I'll have them putting up 31. Being just a 7-point ball game. So I got this being a good one, man. I think it's going to be a solid game. But I am definitely going to be looking for this one. Circle it on your calendars for this upcoming weekend. All right, so we're going to move on to the next one. I'm going to have to dip out for just a second. But, Dustin, do me a favor, my friend. Talk to the fans about Kansas State taking on Kansas this upcoming weekend.
There was a time when nobody would have even batted an eye about this game because Kansas was pathetically terrible for football for the longest time. And now they hired Lance Leipold, who was the former UW-Whitewater head coach for Division III, went to Buffalo in the MAC for a couple years and turned Buffalo into a respective program there. And now he's come over to Kansas. And all he's done with Kansas is win football games. They won, I think, 6 or 7 games last year and became bowl eligible last year. They're 7-3 this year and are number 25 in the country. And he's got that Kansas team trending in the right direction. And then same thing with Kansas State. Back when they had Bill Snyder as their coach in the 80s, 90s, and into the 2000s, this was one of the premier programs in the Big 12 for the longest time. Then they had like a 5 or a 6 year stretch where they were kind of the bottom feeders in the Big 12 because they had to go through a coaching change. They had to go through kind of a different culture shock. and now they're kind of back to where they were back when they were at the height of their program. They're 21st in the country, same record as Kansas at 7-3. The difference is Kansas does not have their starting quarterback who got hurt in week 3. Jason Bean came in to replace their starting quarterback, and he's been injured. And Kansas State has Will Howard, who's basically been their starting quarterback since day one. Will Howard, I mean, the numbers aren't that impressive. 2,190 yards passing, 21 touchdowns, 8 picks. But he does have that added dimension where he can run a little bit. Plus, you have Giddens, who's got 860 yards and 7 touchdowns in the backfield. I mean, Kansas State's got a very good dual threat. I think Kansas has the better running game, obviously, with Devin Neal, who's getting closer to 1,000 yards. But the play of the quarterback, I think, is going to be the difference in this one. I like Kansas State just because of Will Howard and not knowing what's going to be going on with Bean this week. I like Kansas State to win this one. I'm going to go 31-23.
Interesting. Yeah, I like this. For me, this is one of the better games for me. Just because it's an in-state rivalry game, and I love in-state rivalry games. I always have loved in-state rivalry games. Kansas State and Kansas are both 7-3 respectively. Howard, 21-8 versus 10-4 of Bean. And then you got Giddens at 859 on 143 at 7 touchdowns to Neal's 155, 965, 10 touchdowns. It's very, very close on the running game. Super, super close. I mean, 6 yards per carry for Giddens to 6.2 for Neal. This game has the equivalency of being a very, very evenly matched game, in my opinion. I think it really kind of comes down to the defenses and whose defense can get to the quarterback better or stop the run better as to who wins this game. When you look at the opponents of Kansas State, they've lost to Mizzou, Texas, and Oklahoma State. All by only one possession, though. Literally one possession. Matter of fact, the Texas game went to overtime, and they are ranked number 7. So this Kansas State team is extremely tough. When you look at Kansas, they lost to Texas, but they got blew out by Texas at 40-14. Oklahoma State was a one-possession game, and Texas Tech was a 3-point game. So with the exception of Texas, they played extremely well also. But I just think Kansas State has way, way too much for these guys. And so I'm going to have Kansas State upending Kansas. And I think it's going to be a blowout. I don't even think it's going to be a close game. I think it's going to be 35-14 favor of Kansas State.
All right. Jay, well said. Man, yeah, I think that Kansas State's got a really good program also. Kansas, kind of early to midway through the season, we were looking at them as like, okay, could they, get some pull around here? Could they really get it rolling? You mentioned, Jay, they got whooped up on by Texas, and that kind of, I think, dashed a lot of people's hopes for maybe we saw the ceiling for Kansas. Kansas State, they've got a good program. They've got a solid team, no doubt about that. But you mentioned it, Jay. You said defense is what's going to win it to you, and I'm going to have to give the edge right there. Kansas State, I'll have them getting the W in this one. Give me Kansas State 28 and give me Kansas 17 in this ball game. All right, and now we're going to go off the beaten path. Dustin want to have these games in here, so we are going to oblige, and we're going to talk about some games that not many other people are talking about, but that's what we're doing here, Jay and Dustin, because we like to talk about all college football. So, Dustin, lead it off for us. Harvard and Yale, 2 schools that we would have never gotten into and will never get into.
Well, for those who are unfamiliar with the FCS, this game is known as the game, which is basically the Army and Navy game of the FCS. This is going to be the 139th meeting between the two teams. The only rivalry that's been around longer is the Yale-Princeton rivalry, and that is at 140. So it's literally a 1-year difference. But you come into this game right now, you have a Harvard team that is sitting at 8-1, and you have a Yale team that is sitting at 6-3. But Harvard is 5-1 in conference. Yale is 4-2 in conference. So this game is not only a matter of bragging rights, but the winner of this game clinches the Ivy League Conference Championship and will clinch a spot in the FCS playoffs that start next weekend. Harvard's quarterback only has 958 yards passing as opposed to Noah Grooms from Yale has almost 2,000 yards passing. But Grooms is going to be the X factor. He's got 20 touchdowns and 1,700 yards passing, but he's also the team's leading rusher with over 600 yards rushing. So Yale's got a very nice dual threat quarterback versus Harvard's kind of more of your traditional I formation type team that passes. They run more of that pro style offense, but Harvard's really impressed me this year. I did not expect much out of them when the season started. I thought they'd be a 4 or a 5 win team, and right now they're sitting at 8-1 with basically a shot to make the FCS playoffs this weekend. I like Harvard in this one. I'm going to go Harvard 24 and Yale 20.
Okay. All right, Jay, who you got winning the game?
Yeah, this really is the battle of the college sweaters and picnics on the lawn. 8-1, like you said, Harvard against 6-3 Yale. DePrima, just a little bit under 1,000, 12 touchdowns, 7 picks. Is not too far off from Grooms, who's a little bit better than him, at 17, almost 1,800 yards at 20 and 7 picks. So I think Yale does have a little bit better quarterback in this matchup. But I do give the running game to McGoughlin versus Grooms. I think it's interesting that not only is Grooms their main passer, but he's also their main rusher. And anytime, I've always said this, if your passing quarterback is your main rushing person, it's never a good sign for a team. And so based on that principle and that principle alone, they have played – Yale has played Penn, Cornell, and Holy Cross. And those are the 3 losses that Yale took. And Harvard has lost to Princeton at 21-14 with the 1-possession game. You got to go Harvard in this. Even though I really want to kind of go Princeton. I want to go Yale in this. I'm going to stick with Harvard. And I'm going to stick with Harvard. I think it's going to be a close game, 21-14 Harvard.
Ooh, okay. So we got 2 of the obviously, smartest schools in the country. And from what we've said, how we've discussed it, 2 teams who are doing some good work out there in the FCS. For me, this is a toss-up. I can see it going either way, like y'all have mentioned. Good points for both squads. I'm going to have to give I'll go with Yale getting the slight upset in this one. Get the Yale Bulldogs getting the W. I'll go Yale 21, and I'll go Harvard 17. Close ball game in this one. We'll see how it goes.
Will you, old chap?
What was that?
I said, will you, old chap? Okay.
You said, will Yale or will Yale? I don't know. Anyways, final game of the docket here. Montana State. Dustin, what are we looking forward to this weekend?
Well, another long-standing rivalry. This will be meeting number 122 between these two schools, and this one is called the Brawl of the Wild. And they play for what they call the Great Divide Trophy, for those who want to know about trophy games. But like we said, the FCS playoffs technically begin next week. Well, they start for these 2 teams this week. You have an 8-1 Montana Grizzly team sitting at, or 9-1 Montana team sitting at number 3 in the country, and an 8-2 Montana State team sitting at number 4 in the country. So this is the battle of number 3 versus number 4. It's also a battle of basically the winner of this is going to win the Big Sky Conference Championship and clinch the automatic berth in the FCS playoffs. Both of these teams are 6-1 in the Big Sky Conference. It's very seldom that you ever have a 3-loss team make the FCS playoffs. It happened last year. There was a team that was, I forgot what team it was, but they finished the season 7-3. They finished the year ranked number 11 in the country, and they did not make the FCS playoffs because they did not win their conference championship. And the conference championship equates for 28 of the 32 automatic berths. So if you don't win your conference championship, your chances of making the FCS field is not very good. And for that reason, I'm going to go with Montana State because they have to win this game to ensure that they get in versus Montana has a little bit more leeway. I'm going to go Montana State 42 and Montana 30. That Montana State offense that they have is probably the best offense in the FCS.
All right, Jay, similar result or something different?
Yeah, the one thing I'm going to agree with Dustin is this is a bigger game for Montana State than it is Montana. For Montana, though, it's bigger for them in terms of where they stand on the standing side. But it is a big game for Montana because this would be Montana, their first Big Sky title since 2009, and earn them a top 3 seed. Same thing for Montana State, though. There could be back-to-back conference titles and earn them a top 3 seed. Truthfully, it really is just a big game for both schools. It really is. And that's why I fully expect, not only because of their standings and for what it means to each of these schools individually, but it's another in-state rivalry, man. I mean, like Dustin said, it is the brawl of the wild. And I do expect it to live up to that as a brawl. Chambers is 861, 9-2. McDowell is 1107, 8-1. So these guys are pretty similar. Chambers versus Gilman, 77 and 655, but 14 touchdowns to Gilman's 141 and 824 and 9 touchdowns. They lost, I believe, 1 possession games to San Diego State and Idaho for Montana, and the only loss was to Northern Arizona at 28-14 for Montana State. So, and I think I actually had those reversed. But either way, long story short of it all is I'm going to go with Montana in this one. I think they want this thing pretty badly, and I think their run game is going to be a little bit better than Montana State. So for that one, I'm going to go Montana. But I do think it's going to be a close game as well, and I do think it's going to be a brawl. So I'm going to go 28-20 in favor of Montana.
All right. For me, I'll keep it short and sweet. I'm with you, Jay. I think Montana will close it out here. I think they'll get the win in this matchup this upcoming weekend. Give me the Montana close win in this one. I'll go Montana 30, and I'll go Montana State 23. Final score in this one. As always, Jay McLovin, Dustin Reese, always a pleasure talking some college football with y'all each and every single week. I've been your host, producer, Logan Landers. We'll talk to y'all guys on another live episode here on the Elite Sports and Entertainment Network. We'll see you soon.